Hands up. Get on the ground. The shouted command echoed through the warehouse as an armed crew stormed a cash transportation facility in Los Angeles. The criminals, masked and heavily armed, seized millions of dollars before vanishing without a trace. Face down, they barked at the terrified employees. The FBI quickly identified a few suspects, but without solid proof, making an arrest was impossible. Determined to crack the case, special agents and detectives dedicated themselves to tracking down the masterminds behind the daring robbery. A violent heist is always shocking, but this one stood out. It was one of the largest cash robberies in U.S. history. A small piece of plastic was the only piece of evidence left behind. "I'm James Callahan, former head of the FBI's New York field office," said one of the lead investigators. The FBI and financial crime units joined forces to untangle a complex web of money laundering and fraud, hoping to pressure the perpetrators into confessing. The warehouse district of Los Angeles, a gritty, industrial part of the city, is known for its high crime rates and gang activity. Its nondescript buildings, surrounded by barbed wire fences, make it a prime target for criminal enterprises. On one of these fenced-off properties stood a cash transport company. Friday, September 13th, 1997. It was a typical night at the facility. Employees were hard at work, sorting and counting over $20 million in cash, preparing it for distribution to ATMs across the city. During the night shift, 5 employees were on duty, including 2 security guards. At 12:30 a.m., one of the guards took his usual break in the lounge. But this time, something was different. "Hands up, get down now." Out of nowhere, 5 armed men overpowered the unsuspecting guard. "Move. Get up." One of the robbers yanked him to his feet and dragged him toward the surveillance room, where multiple security monitors displayed live footage of the facility. Just then, a second security guard entered, unaware of the unfolding attack. He had just finished his shift and was unarmed. Realizing the situation, he surrendered immediately, knowing resistance would be useless. 4 of the robbers rushed toward the vault while the 5th kept the guards in check, making sure no alarms were triggered. The remaining employees had no idea they were moments away from being caught in the middle of a high-stakes heist. On the ground. "Now!" one of the intruders shouted. The gunmen made it clear they wouldn't hesitate to shoot if anyone disobeyed. They had complete control of the situation. Now, with direct access to the massive vault containing $20 million, it was only a matter of executing their plan flawlessly. One of the men, clearly the leader, gave sharp, deliberate orders. "Not that one, this one. Number 5, stick to the plan." Another man, communicating through a radio, called in their getaway vehicle. "Number 6, bring the truck around. We're ready." The crew had thought of everything. They had assigned each other code names instead of using real names. Their operation was fast and precise, wasting no time. Within 10 minutes, they had hauled millions in cash toward the loading dock. "Not here. Move it over." A robber removed the surveillance system's recording device from an office. "Give me a hand with this." Seconds later, loud bangs echoed from the office, startling the hostages. Let's go. The victims braced for the worst. Were the robbers going to eliminate witnesses? But instead, they took only one thing: the shift manager's car keys. Then, suddenly, silence. The employees waited anxiously, barely breathing. When they were sure the intruders were gone, the security guard sprang into action. "Hold on, Jackson. I'll help you." One of them grabbed a phone and dialed 911. Within minutes, Los Angeles police officers sped toward the crime scene. Detective Daniel Brooks was among the first on site. "All right, we're on our way," he told his team. Assessing the situation, he knew right away this was no ordinary robbery. "We've seen plenty of cash truck stick-ups," he said, "but this was the first time someone had the guts to rob the main facility itself." Officers and detectives quickly secured the area and began interviewing the shaken employees. Every single witness agreed. The robbers knew exactly what they were doing. They weren't just running around like amateurs, one employee recalled. They knew where to go, how to get in, and exactly what to take. None of the employees saw how the gang escaped, but they did hear the rumbling of a diesel engine near the loading dock. That meant at least one additional accomplice. A sixth man was waiting outside. One employee, still trembling, whispered to detectives, I think I recognize one of their voices. It sounded like a former employee. The Los Angeles Police Department, LAPD, wasted no time. Within hours, detectives and forensic experts were swarming the crime scene, searched for anything that could provide a lead. The shift manager, still shaken, spoke to the detectives. One of them took my car keys, he said, his voice unsteady. Your car keys? Did they ask which one was yours? Asked Detective Daniel Brooks. No, the manager said, shaking his head. They already knew. That detail raised a huge red flag. The thieves had picked his vehicle without hesitation, meaning someone in the crew was already familiar with it. That's interesting, Brooks muttered, turning to his partner, Detective Mark Harris. Whoever grabbed those keys knew exactly which car to take. They must have seen it before. Meanwhile, crime scene investigators were busy dusting for fingerprints and checking the building's door locks for signs of forced entry. One technician examined the door's mechanism and frowned. The locks are scratched up, but they're still fully functional, he noted. So they weren't actually broken? Asked Harris. Exactly. It looks like someone staged a break-in to make it look like they forced their way inside, the technician explained. That meant one of two things. Either the robbers had a stolen key or, even worse, one of them had kept their original copy. When the company finished counting its losses, the final number was staggering. $18.9 million gone. This wasn't random, Brooks said, crossing his arms. They knew exactly what to take and what to leave behind. They skipped the bins with checks and stamps, going straight for the ones full of cash. That tells me they either worked here before or had inside information. As the police worked the scene, forensic teams scoured the loading dock for additional clues. They found no footprints, no fabric fibers, and no stray fingerprints. But there was one item out of place, a small plastic piece lying near the area where the getaway vehicle had been parked. One investigator picked it up and examined it under the lights. It looks like part of a taillight or a light cover, he said, probably from a truck. That clue, as small as it was, could be crucial. I spoke with the janitor earlier. Another investigator chimed in. He was cleaning this area a few hours before the robbery, and he swears this wasn't here then. Brooks nodded. So that means it probably broke off the getaway truck during the heist. Without a license plate, a vehicle description, or security footage, it wasn't much, but it was a start. The biggest breakthrough of the night came when one of the employees, a young woman who had worked at the company for years, spoke up. I didn't see anything, she admitted, but I heard one of them talk, and the voice sounded familiar, like someone I used to work with. That statement sent shockwaves through the investigation. Are you sure? Detective Harris asked, leaning in. The woman hesitated. I think so. It's hard to say for certain with the masks and all, but something about the way he spoke, it reminded me of someone. Brooks and Harris exchanged looks. We need you to come down to the station tomorrow morning, Brooks told her. We'll show you photos of former employees and see if anyone stands out to you. Since the stolen money was federally insured, the case immediately escalated to the FBI. Special Agent Jonathan Mercer, a veteran investigator from the Los Angeles field office, arrived at the scene the next day. After reviewing the evidence, he made a critical observation. They knew where every security camera was, Mercer pointed out. Not just that, they even knew about the backup recording device in the locked storage office. That hidden device was only known to a handful of employees. If they knew about that, they had inside access, Mercer said firmly. Either one of the robbers worked here before, or they were working with someone who did. The FBI released a public bulletin describing the robbers' estimated heights, builds, and the weapons they carried. Witnesses reported that 5 of the men appeared to be black, while one had a lighter complexion, possibly Hispanic. A $250,000 reward was offered for any information leading to arrests. We're hoping someone out there recognizes a voice, a movement, anything, Mercer said. With this much money involved, someone is bound to slip up eventually. The investigation was heating up. The FBI, LAPD, and forensic teams had plenty of leads, but no names to attach them to yet. However, that was about to change. One of the detectives, flipping through old employee records, recognized a name that connected directly to the stolen car keys. And just like that, the case took a dramatic turn. Detectives Daniel Brooks and Mark Harris sat in the conference room, reviewing the list of past employees. One name caught their attention immediately. "Wait a second," Brooks muttered, running his finger across the paper. "This guy, he was fired the day before the heist." Harris leaned in. "That's suspicious as hell. What's his name?" "Aaron Price, a former cash transport guard." Aaron had worked at the facility for nearly 18 months before being abruptly suspended. "He never returned his company keys," Brooks noted, tapping his pen against the file. "Then there's a good chance he still had them when the robbery happened," Harris said, exchanging a knowing look with Brooks. The two detectives dug deeper into Aaron's record. While he had no criminal history, he did have a disciplinary file full of warnings, mainly for breaking security protocols and getting caught in restricted areas where he wasn't supposed to be. "Looks like he had a habit of wandering where he didn't belong," Brooks muttered. Special Agent Jonathan Mercer from the FBI joined them, looking over the file. "If he's our guy, he wouldn't have pulled this off alone," Mercer said. "This kind of operation required a team. Let's find out who he's been in contact with." Detectives decided to pay Aaron a visit at his Los Angeles apartment. When they knocked, he answered the door almost immediately, looking calm, maybe too calm. "Aaron Price." Brooks asked. "Yeah," Aaron said, raising an eyebrow. "What's this about?" "You probably heard about the robbery at your old workplace," Harris said casually. Aaron nodded. "Yeah, it's been all over the news. Crazy, right?" The detectives watched him carefully. No visible nerves. No panic. "Where were you the night it happened?" Brooks asked. Aaron shrugged. "At a party in Long Beach with my girlfriend and some friends. We were there all night. Plenty of people saw me." The detectives asked for details, and Aaron immediately provided his girlfriend's name and phone number. "You mind if we talk to her?" Brooks asked. "Go ahead," Aaron said. "She'll tell you the same thing." It was a little too convenient. He had his alibi ready before they even asked. Back at headquarters, the team ran his girlfriend's name through the system. That's when they found something interesting. "Get this," Harris said, eyes scanning a screen. His girlfriend used to work at the same company. Mercer's head snapped up. "In what position?" "Security monitoring," Harris answered. "She was in charge of the surveillance equipment." Brooks let out a low whistle. "So, let me get this straight. Aaron Price gets suspended a day before the robbery. His girlfriend used to work there and had access to all the security systems." "That's not a coincidence," Mercer said flatly. "Detectives called her in for questioning, and she backed up Aaron's story completely. We were at the party the whole night," she insisted. "I was with him the entire time." Other guests at the party confirmed seeing Aaron there, meaning his alibi checked out, at least on paper. But something still didn't sit right. "He's way too confident," Brooks said after she left. "Like, he knew we'd come knocking." Mercer agreed. If he's involved, he planned his alibi well in advance. But that doesn't mean he's clean. While the team investigated Aaron's connections, forensic analysts were still examining the broken plastic piece found at the loading dock. One of the FBI lab technicians in Washington, D.C., compared the fragment to known vehicle models. After hours of testing, he called Mercer with an update. "We got a match," he said. "The plastic belonged to a taillight cover from a rented white box truck, the kind often used for moving or cash transport jobs. Start checking rental companies," Mercer ordered. "Find out who rented one before the heist." Over the next few days, FBI agents visited dozens of truck rental businesses around Los Angeles. One of them, a small rental company in Inglewood, had a record that caught their attention. "Check this out," one of the agents said, holding up the paperwork. "A guy named Ethan Hill rented a truck the day before the robbery." Harris frowned. "Ethan Hill, that name familiar?" Brooks flipped through his notes. "Yeah, he and Aaron Price used to work together at a different security company before Aaron took the cash transport job." Now they were on to something. They tracked the truck down to a lot where it had been returned a day after the heist. FBI technicians scanned it for forensic evidence, comparing paint and damage on the taillight with the plastic fragment found at the crime scene. Within hours, they had an exact match. "This is it," Mercer said. This was a getaway vehicle. The problem? Ethan Hill's name wasn't on any company records. He had rented the truck using a fake ID. But they weren't giving up yet. By cross-checking bank records and employment history, investigators linked Ethan Hill to 3 other men, all of whom had worked in private security. Now, they had a list of potential accomplices, and they were closing in fast. With the rental truck evidence linking the crime to Ethan Hill, investigators knew they were getting closer to the truth. But there was a major obstacle. Hill had rented the truck using a fake ID, and there were no digital footprints tying him to the transaction. Since the stolen money was federally insured, the IRS Financial Crimes Division joined the case, focusing on tracking suspicious financial activity. Agent Philip Monroe, a seasoned forensic accountant, reviewed recent bank deposits, wire transfers, and real estate purchases in Los Angeles. People don't just sit on nearly $19 million in cash, Monroe told the team. They either spend it, invest it, or hide it. He soon found something interesting. A man named Jordan Carter recently deposited $100,000 in crisp $100 bills into a bank account, Monroe explained. The bills were banded with original bank straps, dated just 2 days before the heist. "Where does Carter fit in?" asked Special Agent Jonathan Mercer. "Turns out he used to work security at the same company as Aaron Price and Ethan Hill," Monroe said. "That made 3 ex-security employees connected by suspicious money movements." Instead of arresting Carter outright, the FBI decided to apply pressure. They paid him a visit, acting as if they were just looking for information. Carter played it cool at first, claiming he had no idea about the heist. But when Monroe showed him the bank records, his confidence wavered. "That's a lot of money to be moving around right after a $19 million robbery," Monroe said. Carter swallowed hard. I just came into some cash, that's all." "That cash is serial numbers," Mercer added. "We can trace where it came from." Silence. Carter's hands tightened into fists. He was cracking. "Look," Mercer continued, "we already know you didn't act alone. We know about Ethan Hill, Aaron Price, and at least 2 more guys." At the mention of Hill's name, Carter flinched. A tiny reaction, but enough to tell the agents they were on the right track. "Tell us what you know, Jordan," Monroe said. "If you help us, we might be able to help you." Carter hesitated, then exhaled slowly. "All right," he said, "but I need something in return." "Start talking and we'll see," Mercer replied. According to Carter, the entire plan had been orchestrated by Aaron Price, the former employee who had been suspended just 1 day before the heist. Price knew the building's layout, security schedules, and camera blind spots. "He had this whole thing mapped out months in advance," Carter admitted. "We weren't just some guys with guns running in blind. We knew exactly where everything was: the money, the surveillance system, the vault, even the extra backup cameras." "And how did you get inside?" Mercer asked. Carter smirked. "We had a key." Just as detectives suspected, Price never returned his keys after being fired. But the locks showed signs of tampering, Monroe pointed out. "That was on purpose," Carter said. "We scratched up the locks to make it look like we forced our way in. Didn't want anyone realizing we had inside access." The plan had been flawless. They had waited until a shift change, when the security was at its weakest. They had coded names for each other to avoid using real identities. They had removed the security footage before escaping. And the only mistake? The truck's broken taillight cover, which led the FBI straight to them. With Carter's confession, the FBI now had 4 confirmed members of the heist crew. 1, Aaron Price, the mastermind. 2, Ethan Hill, the getaway driver. 3, Jordan Carter, one of the gunmen. 4, an unidentified 4th suspect. There was still one missing piece, the 5th and final member of the crew. Carter refused to give up his name. "He's dangerous," Carter said. "I don't want to be the guy who rats on him." "Who is he?" Mercer pressed. Carter shook his head. "You don't understand," he said quietly. "This guy? He's the real problem." The agents exchanged looks. Whoever this last man was, even the criminals were afraid of him. And that meant one thing. He was the most dangerous player of them all. With Jordan Carter's confession, the FBI now had 4 of the 5 robbers identified. But the last one, the one Carter refused to name, remained a mystery. "You don't understand," Carter had said. "This guy, he's the real problem." That one sentence changed everything. The agents knew that whoever this man was, he was more than just another crew member. He was a true enforcer, the one who made sure no one talked, no one stepped out of line. Special Agent Jonathan Mercer and Detective Daniel Brooks focused their attention on Carter's known associates. If he wouldn't give them a name, they would find it another way. They dug into Carter's phone records, financial transactions, and past arrests, anything that could tie him to someone with a violent history. That's when one name popped up, Vince Ramirez. Ramirez was different from the others. While the rest of the gang had backgrounds in security, Ramirez had a long criminal record: armed robbery, assault, illegal firearms possession. He had never been convicted for anything major, but his name was all over police files. Now that the FBI had a possible identity, they confronted Carter again. Mercer tossed a mugshot of Ramirez onto the table. "Is this the guy?" he asked. Carter stared at the photo, his face tightening. He didn't speak, but he didn't have to. The reaction said it all. "You're scared of him," Brooks noted. "That's why you won't talk." Carter swallowed. "Vince doesn't mess around," he muttered. "He's not like us. The rest of us, we just wanted the money. But him? He's the kind of guy who'd kill someone just to prove a point." Mercer exchanged a glance with Brooks. That changed everything. This wasn't just about catching the last suspect. This was about stopping a man who was willing to kill to keep his freedom. With Vincent Ramirez officially on their radar, the FBI dug into his recent activity. They learned that he'd been staying in Las Vegas, living large and expensive hotels, and gambling thousands of dollars in cash. "It fits," Brooks said. "They stole $18.9 million, and now this guy is out here burning through cash like it's nothing." Surveillance footage from Las Vegas casinos confirmed that Ramirez had been there multiple times over the past few months. Since Ramirez was moving between casinos, the FBI set a trap. They contacted casino security teams in Las Vegas, giving them Ramirez's photo and instructions. "The moment you see him, call us, but don't spook him." It didn't take long. A security officer from the Mirage Casino called the FBI just 2 days later. "He's here right now," the officer whispered. "He just cashed out $20,000 in chips." FBI agents rushed to the casino. They knew they had to be careful. If Ramirez was truly as dangerous as Carter had suggested, there was a chance he was armed. Instead of storming in, they had a casino employee set a trap. One of the security guards approached Ramirez. "Sir, we have an issue with your vehicle in the parking lot," he said. "You might want to check it out." Ramirez, unsuspecting, followed him outside. The second he stepped through the side exit, he found himself surrounded by armed FBI agents. "Vincent Ramirez, you're under arrest." For a split second, his hand twitched toward his waistband, but he knew he was outnumbered. Slowly, he raised his hands. It was over. Back in Los Angeles, Ramirez was brought in for questioning. Unlike Carter, he refused to talk. The FBI didn't need him to. They had enough evidence, witness testimony, financial records, and Carter's confession to charge all 5 men with armed robbery, conspiracy, and money laundering. One by one, the crew fell. Ethan Hill, 9 years in prison. Jordan Carter, 7.5 years for cooperating. Aaron Price, 17 years. Vincent Ramirez, 24 years as the enforcer. But even with the gang behind bars, one mystery remained. Where was the missing money? Of the $18.9 million stolen, only about $5 million had been recovered. That left nearly $14 million unaccounted for. As Ramirez was being escorted to prison, an FBI agent asked him, "Where's the rest of the money?" Ramirez smirked. "You think we're stupid?" he said. "You'll never find it." And with that, he was taken away. The FBI knew one thing for certain. Even after putting the robbers behind bars, they would keep watching them, because sooner or later, one of them would slip up, and when they did, the FBI would be waiting. Agents started by digging through financial records, bank accounts, real estate transactions, offshore holdings. They found traces of the stolen cash, luxury cars paid for in cash, expensive jewelry bought with untraceable funds, a handful of properties purchased under fake names. But even with those clues, most of the $14 million remained unaccounted for. FBI agents kept surveillance on the robbers. Even after their convictions, they monitored phone calls, visitors, and financial activity. Because one thing was certain, the money was still out there, hidden somewhere, waiting to be retrieved. And the moment any of them tried to access it, the FBI would be there. It didn't take long. 2 years into his sentence, Vincent Ramirez made a mistake. During a monitored phone call, he spoke in coded language with an old associate. But the FBI caught on immediately. "We need to pick up the tools," Ramirez had said. "The ones we left in the warehouse." Tools. The agents weren't buying it. They quickly traced the call and identified the recipient, a known associate with a history of laundering money. That was all they needed. A week later, FBI agents raided a storage unit in East Los Angeles. Inside, they found stacks of cash hidden in sealed containers, nearly $9 million of the stolen money. It wasn't the full amount, but it was enough to confirm what they already suspected. The robbers had stashed the money away, planning to collect it after they got out. The discovery of the hidden cash led to new charges against Ramirez. This time, the government hit him with money laundering and conspiracy to conceal stolen funds, adding another 10 years to his sentence. And just like that, his chance of ever seeing freedom again was gone. Even after the storage unit raid, there was still $5 million missing. The FBI continued monitoring the remaining robbers, knowing that someone, somewhere, still had access to it. But as time went on, the leads grew colder. Some suspected the money had been spent, hidden overseas, or passed through so many hands it was impossible to trace. Others believed one of the robbers had an unknown accomplice, someone who had escaped detection and was quietly living off the stolen fortune. The Los Angeles cash heist went down as one of the biggest robberies in U.S. history. It was a crime executed with precision, insider knowledge, and months of careful planning. But in the end, no plan is perfect. The robbers thought they had committed the perfect crime. But one broken taillight, one loose-lipped confession, and one small mistake was all it took to bring them down. And though some of the money was never recovered, the FBI remained confident. If anyone ever tried to touch that missing cash, they'd be watching.